So, Finding Sane Relationships in a Crazy World, the first edition came out 12 years ago. Now, why did I write the book? What was my why? Well, the reason I wrote the book is because I realized how a book can change your life. And the book that changed my life was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Now, many of you are probably familiar with the Four Agreements. It actually came out many, many years ago, but it's a book that I incorporated in my life. And the wisdom that was shared was so profound. Now, the Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz was a physician, and he's a spiritual healer from Latino Toltec. And from the Toltec wisdom, he got four nuggets of wisdom. Number one, be impeccable with your word. What does that mean? Words are powerful. Be careful what you say. Words have energy. Don't assume anything. Don't take things personal, and always do your best. So after reading that book, which changed my life, and it's simple stuff, but it's hard to incorporate in your life on a daily basis, I realized books have power. Words have power. So that was my why when I first wrote this book 12 years ago. And I have to say that it's been, quite a journey. So it's been very well received over the years. And I've had the pleasure of doing workshops around finding sane relationship in a crazy world. I actually went to Dallas to speak there. And so I've done a lot of speaking around this book. And through the years, what I realized is people are interested in this topic. And so I have learned so much, and I realize that people really do want healthy relationships in their lives. They just don't always know how to get them. So the primary difference between the first book and the second book, same content, but what I did, the second edition is more like a workbook. It's giving you exercises, and there's a total of 21 different exercises in the second edition. So you can do the work to get healthy relationships. So the book is on Amazon, and later on I'll drop the link in the chat. But what I did in the second edition, yes, the first edition, I had an e-version for the people that like to read on Kindle. I had a paperback, but what I've done in the second edition is now I also have an option of having a hard copy. And so there's some people that really like the hard copy because they like the way the hard copy feels. They like to hold the book in their hands. And so the hard copy was very important to me. So let's go back to the content of the book. I believe that you're the foundation, like I said already, of all the relationships in your life. So it's important for you to take responsibility for your life and your actions so you don't blame others. Now, we know that we're all social creatures, right? We're social creatures, and therefore we're going to have relationships. And when I talk about relationships, I'm not just talking about romantic relationships or partner relationships. Those are absolutely important in our lives. But we have many different types of relationships. We have family relationships. We have friend relationships, coworkers, neighbors. For those of that you attend services, you have, people that you meet at church. If you're involved in the community, people that you meet in the community. So there's many, many different types of relationships. So as a result with that, it's really important that you really work on all the relationships in your life, but it really starts with you. So I have been my whole life big believer in self-help and personal development. So when we work on ourselves and we do the work to become healthy, whole, and complete, Then when we do that work, our relationships become better because, like I've said, we are the foundation of all relationships in our life. So what I'm going to do today, because I wanted to be respectful of everybody's time, so I'm going to keep this at 30 minutes. And I may in the future do another one because, like I said, there's 21 different exercises. Today, what I'm going to do is review 6 of the exercises and go over them with you. So I'd like to say this is a workshop. So guess what? We're going to do work. So what I want you to do is take a minute and grab a pen and paper, or for those of you that like technology, take notes on your phone or whatever works for you. But we're going to do a little bit of work because when you do the work and you improve yourself, then guess what? The relationships will improve. And so before I go on any further, I'm really grateful that everybody that's joined us today have a lot of amazing people out there. Um, Tammy Membrano, she's the CEO of Bodio Action. I have to give a special shout out to Tammy because when the first book came out 12 years ago, she actually hosted a workshop at Bodio Action. So she's been a big supporter for many, many years. I also want to give special shout out to my sister, Liliana Perez. Liliana, we have known each other many, many years. And I also have some new friends that have joined us. And I want to give a shout out to my Cherokee sister, Reagan, who is an amazing creative artist and a movie director. So I don't have time to go over and give shout out to everybody because we have a lot of people on here today, but I just wanted to give a special shout out to some of the amazing friends. So I hope you took that time to get the paper and pencil because here we go. So I think where it really starts when we're talking about relationships, and again, this is any kind of relationships, it's really identifying what your relationship values are. So exercise number 1, identifying your relationship values. Now, for me, my relationship values are, first of all, communication. When we're communicating with people, whether it be a partner, a family member, whatever who we're communicating with, it's very important to make sure that communication is clear. And when I talk about communication, there's actually 2 sides to communication. The obvious is we're communicating. We are using language to express our thoughts and beliefs. We can be doing this, speaking communication verbally. We can be writing it. We could be texting it, but we're communicating. And that's important. But what most people forget about is the second part of communication, which is equally important. It's about listening. So a lot of people like to talk, but they really don't take the time to listen to what that other person is saying. So for me, one of my relationship values is having communication where both people that are in this relationship are communicating and listening. And I think for women, because there's a lot of women with us today, I think for women, listening is our superpower because we do listen to what other people say. So the second relationship value that I have in my relationships is honesty. Honesty is so important. And I mean, honesty is pretty obvious, right? But sometimes people, instead of telling you the truth, they tell you what they think you want to hear. And I practiced honesty with my son. I have one son who's now grown. And what I always told him is that, I'm always going to be an ear to listen to you, but you have to be honest. And I am going to listen. I might not like what you're saying. I might not agree with what you're saying, But for me, a strong relationship value is honesty. The other relationship value I have is trust. I have to trust somebody to be in a healthy relationship with them. Now, what does trust mean? Well, first of all, as we all know, trust is not automatic. Trust is something that is earned. And it's basically for me, it's I'm trusting that other person with my friendship, relationship, that they will always act in a way that is not going to hurt me. That's what works for me in terms of when I think of trust. The other thing I think of is respect. Good old Aretha Franklin talked about respect, right? And so in a relationship, it's important to respect each other. Now, why do I say this? Because we know in life, every single person has their own individual journey. We're all here with our own journey. And it's about respecting that other person's ability to live their journey and walk through life, not how I want them to do it, but how they want to do it. And the respect is about me not imposing my beliefs on or values on them, just like I hope that they respect my opinion. And some of my friends and relationships, we don't always agree on everything, and that's okay. That's the beauty of life, right? We're all different. But it's about respecting the other person's decision to live their life, live their journey, and in a way that they feel comfortable, not how I want them. So respect is one of my core values when it comes to relationships. Another value that I have in all my relationships is reciprocity. Now, what do I mean by reciprocity? What I mean there is give and take. There has to be an energetic give and take. What happens many times of women, what we do a lot is we give, 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 give. And then when it comes time to receive, we put a block. Oh, no, we don't. You don't have to do that for me. You don't have to give me a compliment, whatever it is. But reciprocity allows that energetic flow to go between both people. So for me, having that reciprocity, if I feel like I'm giving, doing all the giving in a relationship and not get anything in return, then I don't feel comfortable. I start resenting the other person. And this is not to say with reciprocity that you keep score. Like I did this and you have to do that. It's not even about that. It really is about that energetic flow that happens naturally. So those are what is important to me. So what I would like you to do at this point is take a minute, take a deep breath in, and I want you to list your relationship values. What is important to you about all the relationships in your life? And I'm going to ask you to write them down now. It could be one. I had one guy that said, hey, as long as a person's honest with me, I could deal with everything else. So let's just say, what are your top two? What are your top two values in relationships? Write your top two down now. So I know I'm going through this, and in the book, you'll find that at the end of each chapter, there are these exercises where, if you're working with the book, you can write them down there. But relationship values are very important for you to think about. So the next exercise, I believe that all personal development starts with self-reflection. It's about holding up that mirror and take a look at ourselves. Because many times we look at everybody else, sometimes we judge other people, but it's really about looking at ourselves. So what I like for people to do is think about what kind of person they are. What kind of person, not that you used to be, because I'm not the same person I was 12 years ago when I wrote the book, are not the person that you aspire to be, but who are you today? So the next exercise is really writing down adjectives or phrases that describe you. So again, for the sake of time, I'm going to ask you to write down 2 adjectives that describe you. For me, when I think about myself, I feel like I'm a positive person. I feel like I'm intelligent. I try to be compassionate. I really like to enjoy life. I'm a responsible person and I love to help others. So write down 2 adjectives or phrases that describe you. Do that now. So, the next thing I want to talk about is happiness, and really thinking about what makes you happy in life. Now, it's interesting because Harvard University did the longest study on happiness that's ever been done. It was over a 75-year period. And they followed men for 75 years. And the reason it was only men is because 75 years ago, only men attended Harvard. So they took a group of Harvard graduates and compared them to what they considered the average person, the working class person. And they studied these people for 75 years. And the conclusion was it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter how your job title. At the end of the day, the key to happiness is the quality of your relationships. And that's why relationships and finding healthy relationships is so important. So again, we have a short period of time, but after the webinar, I want you to really sit down and ask yourself, what makes you happy? Which leads me to the next exercise is ask yourself, what's getting in the way of your happiness? Because nobody's happy 100% of the time. So what are the things that stop you from being happy? Those things I like to call your emotional baggage. Because when we're a baby, we're born, we're pure, we're happy. And when we want something, we're unhappy, we cry, but most of the time they're happy. Then we go through life and have experiences. The good experiences create memories, but the bad experiences create emotional baggage. And each of us have emotional baggage, which gets in the way of us being happy. And it shows up differently for everybody. It could be anger, resentment, shame, guilt, insecurities, fear. We have all this stuff that stops us from being happy. So once you identify what makes you happy, then think about what is stopping you from truly being happy. We're not going to stop and take a break on that, but it's something to think about later. The next exercise is probably one of the most powerful exercises I know in my life. Can't speak for everybody because everybody's different. But the next exercise is around forgiveness. Forgiveness is a powerful tool. Now, one thing about forgiveness is there's 2 parts to forgiveness. It's about forgiving others that maybe have done something to you or didn't do something to you that you thought they should do. That's one part of it. Others. But for me, the most powerful forgiveness exercise I ever did was forgiving myself. And many of you have heard my story before. I was sexually traumatized when I was young, and I forgave the person that caused the trauma pretty early on. But it wasn't until I forgave myself that I truly healed. So take some time later on today or this evening or a later date and think about who needs your forgiveness, and in yourself, what do you need to forgive around yourself? The 6th exercise I'm going to talk about today And this is, I really haven't talked a lot about this in the past, but I know for me it came up a lot over the last 12 years, is family issues. Now, family and relationships with family can be a little tricky. Like the people I have in my life, my friends, my sisterhood, all these amazing people, I chose to have them in my life. But with family, we don't always get a choice, right? And so family issues can really play a part in developing our emotional baggage. And why? Because the formative years, the first 5 years of your life, the family is what you're surrounded with. And so for me personally, I had a lot of issues around my mom. And so during the pandemic, she actually transitioned. But before she transitioned, she actually had dementia. So I really couldn't necessarily work through all the issues with her because she had dementia and really didn't know. But what I did do is I sat down and listed every experience that I remembered that caused me trauma between her and I wrote it all down and then I released it. So when she finally did make her transition, I was able to say goodbye with no regrets. And now, mind you, she wasn't necessarily asking for my forgiveness, but I had to release and forgive her. So a lot of these things are all intertwined. Forgiveness can be intertwined with your family issues and traumas that you have experienced in your life. Now, one thing about forgiveness and healing and anything that you're experiencing or getting in the way of your happiness, these things are not linear, meaning that it's one and done. Sometimes it really takes time to work through these unresolved feelings. Now, for me, again, going back to the book, there's 21 different exercises, all very different. And if you really, really want to have sane, healthy relationships in your life, it's taking the time to do the work. Doesn't mean you're going to sit down and do all the exercises in the book in one night. It's taking it at your own pace, because I find a lot of people, especially I talked about emotional baggage getting away in the way of our happiness. A lot of people have this emotional baggage and they just don't know what to do with it. A lot of people go to therapy. If you go to therapy, good for you. I have a brother that works a 12-step program. He's an Alcoholics Anonymous, works through the steps. But I'm finding that through my work in the last 12 years, a lot of people just have all this stuff and emotional baggage and stuff that's getting in the way of happiness, and they just don't know what to do with it. So if you know somebody that you feel is struggling and needs help with themselves or relationship, the book is ideal. And so I also want to say that for me, when I finished work that I'm doing, any of these exercises, I really refer back to the serenity prayer. And for those of you that are not familiar with the serenity prayer, I'm going to share it with you now. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so we live in a world of free will, or we can choose, make the life that we want by our choices. But what we can't do is control other people or necessarily things around us. So I know I'm rushing through this, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. For those of you that are not connected with me, please connect on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I want to say that next week on September 6th, I'm actually going to be running a special. I'm going to be giving out a free Kindle version, an e-version of the book. And so I'll put it out on my social media and share it with your friends, anybody that you think that is ready to work on themselves so they could find healthy, sane relationships. Share the information with them. I'm also going to be doing a book reading, book signing. That's going to be at Los Libros. It's a bookstore in Lincoln Heights at 3422 North Broadway. Again, that will be in my on my social media as well. And I just recently did another webinar called Mastering the Game of Life with the Laws of Nature. I partnered with a gentleman, Wade Chumney, who is known as the AI ethics dude. And what we're doing there is we're talking about the laws of nature and how you can implement them in your life, use them in your life to be happy, healthy, and whole. So I know I'm moving very quickly through this stuff because we only do have an hour. So at this point, I am going to open it up to see if anybody, I don't think the chat's open, but let me see if anybody has any questions for me, because we just have 2 more minutes. But again, I really do believe that if you take the time to work on yourself and get rid of your emotional baggage, that you will have healthy relationships. I'm so blessed that in my life, I have an amazing group of friends, women that I call my sisterhood, that we support each other, we love each other. I also have many of my best friends are male, because I think it's important to have that balance. I also have a lot of healthy relationships with people of different generations. I love Gen Z. I love me some Gen Z. And so having diversity in your relationships, I think, is important as well. So I don't see any questions. I'm not even sure if the question ability is there, but I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. I do want to connect to each and every one of you. So if you know anybody that, wants to work on themselves, I am going to have the link for this. I'll send it out in an email tomorrow, and just keep in touch, because I believe that you deserve to have healthy, sane relationships. So anybody knows me knows I'm a big believer in positive affirmations. I want everybody to sit up, take in a deep breath, and repeat after me. I deserve healthy relationships. I work on myself to create those. And I love myself. I enjoy life. And I am going to show up tomorrow better than I was today. So thank you for listening. You guys are amazing. And until we meet again, bye.